and welcome to my channel. If you're new, I am so glad you found me, and if you have been here before, oh my God, you came back. I am so glad you popped on. Thank you. My name is Alonda Carter, and I'm a recovering Hunbot. On my channel, I cover r/anti-MLM and leverage my personal Hunbot experience. I also cover other Reddit material from time to time, and I draw from my expertise as an instructional designer, giving you tips on how to create online courses. In today's video, I'm going to cover a paper that was presented at the International Cultic Studies Conference that took place earlier this year in Manchester, England. Now, reading this, it really kind of struck home. In fact, it is reminiscent of research I did on the Sendero Luminoso, or Shining Path, when I was an anthropology graduate student. The leader, Abimael Guzman, maintained control over the Quechua speakers by employing symbolic control mechanisms. At least that's kind of my contention. Now, I don't have the paper. I'm not even sure where it is anymore, probably on a floppy somewhere. But, you know, it just really made me think about how I wrote about that particular organization. Now, I am not saying MLMs are a terrorist group, not at all. I'm reflecting on my experience, on the research that I did, and I also believe that individuals who join MLMs undergo having, some various symbolic mechanisms of control used on them, which keeps them bound to the organization. I have not really fleshed out this idea. It's just something kind of, in the back of my head that just, kind of is percolating, so to speak. But I think if you strip back the various layers of any organization that controls its members, there's going to be some similar traits across all of them. I do not want this video to go on too long, so I'm thinking that it may need to be a series just to avoid listener fatigue. But let's go ahead and get into it. Introduction. Multi-level marketing, MLM, has been controversial since its origins in the 1950s. The vast majority of participants in MLM organizations lose money. Given the dismal financial results, why do people continue to join MLM firms? And once they have joined, why do they stay involved as long as they do? Early in my career, I worked in a law firm that specialized in representing franchises and distributors in trading distribution systems. I left that firm in the early 1990s and developed a practice representing plaintiffs in class actions in cases involving securities fraud, antitrust, and consumer protection. A small but significant part of my class action work has also included suing MLM companies on behalf of MLM distributors who lost money. From the beginning, it became clear to me that MLM was unlike any of the franchise or other distribution systems with which I was familiar. One universal fact was that the vast majority of MLM distributors lose money and eventually drop out, while a tiny percentage are paid huge sums. Even if they aren't pyramid schemes, they sure look like it. While I cannot say that every MLM is a pyramid scheme, I can say that every one of the hundreds that I have looked at shares the characteristics of massive losses by distributors at the lower and mid levels of the organization and substantial earnings only at the very highest levels. I initially thought the problem with MLM must be lack of disclosure. In contrast to MLM opportunities, persons who are considering purchasing a franchise are entitled to receive a detailed disclosure statement before they pay any money to the franchisor. This pre-sale disclosure statement is required by a regulation of the U.S. Federal Trade Commission, FTC, as well as state laws in 14 states. But the FTC franchise rule and state franchise laws do not apply to opportunities where the required payments within the first 6 months of operation are less than a certain amount, generally around $500. MLM firms usually do not quote unquote require payments at all, except for the initial starter kit, which is usually priced well below $500. I put quote unquote require in quotes because, as I explained below, in order to effectively participate in the opportunity, MLM distributors are urged to purchase much more than the initial starter kit. Beginning around 1995, I and other consumer advocates began urging the FTC to adopt a regulation that would require MLM firms to make pre-sale disclosures to prospective distributors, similar to the way the FTC's franchise rule requires pre-sale disclosures to prospective franchises. Ultimately, our efforts were unsuccessful. In 2012, the FTC adopted a business opportunity rule that requires pre-sale disclosures to business opportunities that are not franchises, like rack sales, vending machines, and work-at-home schemes. But most types of MLM plans were exempted. In my view, the MLM exemption was entirely unjustified and was the result of intense lobbying by MLM firms as well as the Direct Selling Association, DSA, whose membership is almost entirely comprised of MLM firms. We continue to advocate for pre-sale disclosure rule that would cover MLM, but experience suggests that a disclosure rule will not solve the problem. Although not required to do so, some MLM firms do provide some disclosure concerning the commission earnings of their distributors. While these disclosures are typically presented in ways which overstate the potential for income and omit crucial data concerning such matters as distributor expenses and attrition rates, they generally portray an opportunity which provides substantial incomes to only a very small percentage of MLM distributors and little or no income for most participants. These disclosures do not appear to have had much effect on the ability of MLM firms to recruit new participants. The questionable efficacy of pre-sale disclosures now has empirical support. Economist Stacy Bosley conducted a study of the effect of MLM income disclosures on consumers. Professor Bosley found that such disclosures did not significantly discourage interest in the business opportunity, although it did somewhat reduce earning expectations. MLM firms not only have a limited risk in providing some earnings disclosures, but may also receive some benefits. Providing pre-sale disclosures may give MLM firms a defense to claim of fraud or deception, in that distributors who receive such disclosures before joining the organization may not be able to credibly argue that they were defrauded when their income expectations are not met. In addition, the existence of a disclosure rule might have the unintended consequence of legitimizing an opportunity which should probably be prohibited entirely. Potential recruits who are provided with a disclosure statement that refers to an FTC requirement may believe that this amounts to an endorsement by the FTC. The questionable efficacy of pre-sale disclosure suggests that something other than simple fraud or deception is at work in the MLM recruitment process. I suggest, and I am not the first, that the widespread use of coercive persuasion techniques similar to those employed by cults is at least partially to blame. I do not know when MLM was first associated with the word cult, but it was early in the history of the industry. Phil Kearns' 1982 book, Fake It Till You Make It, refers to allegations that Amway was a cult. And in 1985, a former Amway distributor, Stephen Butterfield, published a book called Amway, The Cult of Free Enterprise. How could a business opportunity be a cult? According to its proponents, MLM is merely a form of direct selling, in which distributors can earn money both by selling products to consumers as well as recruiting more distributors and earning commissions when they and their recruits sell products. But Kearns' and Butterfield's experiences in Amway included mass meetings with enthusiastic distributors giving standing ovations to high-level Amway speakers mysterious terminology, relentless focus on recruitment, positive thinking, the avoidance of any questioning of Amway or its high-level distributors, and the tendency for Amway distributors to dedicate more and more of their time and energy to the organization, often at the expense of their relationships with family and friends, despite the lack of financial success. All of these factors are consistent with at least the popular perception of what a cult is. Other former Amway distributors have reported similar experiences and added revealing details. In Amway Motivational Organizations Behind the Smoke and Mirrors, the author documented how high-level Amway distributors were making substantial profits selling recruitment training methods and materials to lower-level distributors, in some cases more than they were earning through Amway. In Merchants of Deception, Eric Schreiber, Scheibler, related his experience of rising through the ranks of Amway up to the level of Emerald Distributor, preaching the Amway message of prosperity, recruiting a downline of 2,000 distributors, while his actual earnings were so inadequate that he was forced to declare bankruptcy. Both Carter and Scheibler, analyzed the cultic behavior of Amway distributors. Scheibler, the one I can't pronounce, was counseled by Stephen Hassan, who has also addressed the issue of cultic behavior in MLM organizations. A broader look at the MLM industry, including consideration of many of the cultic elements, false prophets seeking financial and spiritual deliverance in multi-level marketing and pyramid schemes, was published in 1997. While I have represented anti-cult advocates who were sued by cults, I am not an expert on cult psychology or any other relevant field. My hope is that this paper will assist professionals and academics who do have expertise in cults to evaluate the impact of MLM recruitment practices on participants. I outline below some of the elements of the typical MLM recruitment process with examples taken from the experiences of former MLM distributors, documentaries, and MLM training videos. I begin with some background on the MLM industry and pyramid schemes, continue with a description of what I believe are key elements of the MLM recruitment pitch, and close with a summary of the current legal remedies available in U.S. for MLM victims, which I conclude are not adequate to address the problems of MLM. Distinguishing direct selling, MLM, and pyramid schemes. Before proceeding to the topic of MLM recruitment techniques, it is necessary to give some background and to define and distinguish the terms direct selling, multi-level marketing, and pyramid schemes. The following discussion is only a summary. Those interested in a complete history or a more thorough legal analysis will have to refer to some of the authorities referenced in this paper. What is direct selling? Direct selling is person-to-person selling away from a fixed retail location. The salesman is generally considered to be self-employed, independent contractor who is compensated based on the volume of sales to consumers. As described by Arthur Leff in Swindling and Selling, it is a difficult business. Door-to-door is tough selling scene. Since you are not, like a storekeeper, necessarily dealing with people who, by showing up at your shop, indicate that they are interested in buying, you hit an enormous number of totally dead prospects. And since you are going to them, you expend a huge amount of time and labor, i.e. money, reaching the very few live ones you find. Thus, you must make a very large profit pre-sale to make any money at all. But the higher you set your price, the stronger the customer resistance. Leff also explained one key aspect of a direct selling system, which is the fundamental conflict between the manufacturer and the salesman concerning how many salesmen there should be. From the manufacturer's point of view, all that counts is gross sales. Whether he reaches $1 million a year with 10 salesmen or 100 concerns him little, as long as he reaches it in the same sales cost and continue to do so. But as to the number of salesmen used, the salesman and the manufacturer are in conflict. For assuming a finite market, Hardly an unrealistic assumption, each salesman is a competitor of every other, and thus strongly interested in minimizing the sales force. That is, not only will each seller fight for a larger split of what returns there are on his sales, but he will also fight for a restriction upon the number of people trying to get those sales. Love oversimplifies this conflict a bit. Most manufacturers recognize that a healthy distribution system must offer distributors a reasonable opportunity to succeed, which means that there can't be too many distributors that they cannibalize each other's sales. Likewise, most distributors recognize that they benefit from the activities of other distributors, including by increasing brand recognition, by lowering prices due to the manufacturer's increased volume, or by increasing pooled advertising contribution or similar factors. But the basic point that distributors want there to be limits on the total number of distributors and would prefer exclusive sales territories is important when contrasting direct selling with MLM. What is multi-level marketing? In a multi-level marketing system, the distributors acquire the right to both sell and manufacture products and the right to recruit additional distributors who will themselves have the right to sell the products and recruit still more distributors, and so on. The key attraction of MLM distributors is they can qualify to earn commissions based on the sales volume generated by the recruits and the distributors recruited by the recruits, and so on. Leff describes the MLM system as follows. But what if the deal is this? As a distributor, you can sell the goods to consumers, and you can also sell the right to sell goods to other sellers, who in turn also get both these rights ad infinitum. If you talk 5 friends into each recruiting 5 friends of theirs, and each of those persuades but 5 more, there will be 145 people working for you. If you get some break off on all of the business they do, your earnings are no longer limited by the amount of time and labor you can expend on selling goods. More importantly, neither are your recruits' earnings limited by their labor, for they can do the same thing you are doing. You can, that is, get them into the plan at bargain prices for the same reason you were initially willing to join. Accordingly, the MLM model reverses the natural inclination of distributors to want to limit the total number of distributors. MLM distributors are trained and motivated to enthusiastically recruit more and more distributors, despite the fact that every new distributor is a competitor. MLM firms do not grant exclusive territories, and there is no limit on the number of distributors. In the United States, traditional direct selling has almost disappeared. 96% of the companies that call themselves direct sellers are in fact following the MLM model. What is a pyramid scheme? The definition of a pyramid scheme in the context of product distribution has evolved in a series of cases brought by the Federal Trade Commission against MLM firms beginning in the 1970s. The most frequently quoted definition is from Coercive, in which the FTC stated that such schemes are characterized by the payment by participants of money to the company in return for which they receive 1. The right to sell a product, and 2. The right to receive in return for recruiting other participants into the program rewards, which are unrelated to the sale of the product to ultimate users. In Webster versus Omnitrition, the Ninth Circuit held that the second element of the Coercive test, recruitment with rewards unrelated to product sales, is the sine qua non of a pyramid scheme. In FTC versus Burn Lounge, the Ninth Circuit clarified that the rewards do not have to be completely unrelated to retail sales. An MLM is a pyramid if its rewards are paid primarily for recruiting. MLM proponents often make statements to the effect that we aren't a pyramid scheme because we are selling a real product. But the sale of a product is a red herring. The occurrence of some retail sales does not preclude the finding that an MLM is a pyramid scheme. There is considerable controversy over whether ultimate users can include MLM distributors who are supposedly purchasing for their own use. In Omnitrition, the Ninth Circuit appeared to hold that participants in the MLM plan cannot be considered ultimate users. In Burn Lounge, however, the Ninth Circuit backed off this position. The problem of considering MLM participants to be ultimate users, what the MLM industry refers to as self-consumption, is that in order to assess whether an MLM is a pyramid scheme, it is necessary it requires a determination of whether the distributor's purchase is motivated by a bona fide desire to consume or use the products, or whether the purchase is motivated by the desire to qualify for rewards under the MLM compensation plan. As explained by Edith Ramirez, the former chairwoman of the FTC, simply put, products sold by a legitimate MLM should be principally sold to consumers who are not pursuing a business opportunity. For good reason. The law has always taken a skeptical view of paying compensation to someone based on the presumed internal consumption or personal consumption of recruits who are pursuing a business opportunity. When a product is tied to a business opportunity, experience teaches that the people buying it may well be motivated by reasons other than the actual product demand. The fact that MLM distributors may have mixed motives for purchasing products complicates the determination of whether a given MLM plan is a pyramid scheme. It requires the FTC or private plaintiff to undertake a lengthy, time-consuming, and expensive investigation into the actual purchases and sales of the MLM distributors. Such investigations are made more burdensome due to the fact that MLM firms typically do not collect records of their distributors' retail sales. The complexities inherent in assessing the motivations of MLM distributors in purchasing products reached its acme in the FTC's recent settlement with Herbalife. The FTC's complaint alleged that Herbalife distributors experienced difficulty in selling product to consumers outside the network. While Herbalife's compensation structure puts pressure on distributors to purchase large quantities of product in order to qualify for the greater wholesale discounts and recruiting-based awards, the FTC then alleged that Herbalife distributors disposed of excess products by giving or throwing it away, or by gradually consuming it themselves. Significantly, the complaint alleged that such self-consumption is not driven by genuine demand for the product, but is the easiest and most convenient way for a distributor to get some benefit from product that distributor would not have brought absent his or her participation in the business opportunity. In the consent order, which also imposed $200 million in restitution and a 7-year monitoring regime by an independent compliance monitor, Herbalife was required to implement a comprehensive set of changes to its compensation plan, including retail sales verification and record keeping, much of which was designed to preclude the payment of rewards to distributors based on purchases by other distributors unless those purchases were undoubtedly motivated by bona fide retail demand. Okay, I am going to end this here because this is all very, very deep, but I think that this can really lead to some good discussion. And if you are a member of an MLM, and if you want a copy of this, you can ask me. I'm happy to send it to you because I do have permission to share this with other people. But it just really makes you kind of stop and think, doesn't it? What is really, really going on here? How are you really being motivated? Are you really going to have that dream life you're thinking about that just such a very few minute group of people actually have? It's doubtful. Maybe you will, but you know, even if you are, I really want you to consider how many people are actually being hurt by this business practice. Because there's so many people that enter and leave MLMs because they're not experiencing, quote, success. And success, it can be different in different people's eyes. Myself, I wasn't ever able to keep just 2 people underneath me. And I did all the things. And I spent a lot of money. And I invested in myself. I did everything. And it didn't happen. Now, you might be just saying, well, Alonda, you're just sour grapes. You just don't get it. I'm just going to keep on going. Well, come back and let's talk after you've been doing it for 4 years and you still don't have success. That you still are like just scrambling to get someone to pay attention. Let's talk then. Come back. Come back to this video and let me know how you're doing. As always, thank you so very much for being here. I really appreciate it. I will continue this for part 2. If you have been impacted by an MLM, meaning you joined and found that, quote, building your business is not what you expected because the system is set up against you, speak out. This is the best thing you can do. File a report with the FTC. People impacted by MLMs typically are very unlikely to file reports. I think that has to do a lot with like being embarrassed or ashamed. And MLMs are counting on that. Until more people flood the FTC about each incident from each company, nothing will change. Your voice adds fuel to the fire. The only way we can make a change is to speak out. MLMs count on the fact that you won't take action. I hope you will join me and encourage someone you know who has joined an MLM to tell their story. If you like this type of content, consider subscribing and give this video a thumbs up. And remember, change starts now.